There's a part of you you've been avoiding your entire life. Not because it's weak, but because it doesn't fit the image you were trained to become. You learn to be controlled, agreeable, acceptable, to hide certain instincts, to reject certain thoughts, to distance yourself from anything that might make you look wrong in the eyes of others. Over time, that became your identity, but something never fully disappeared. It stayed underneath, quiet, observing, waiting, and the more you ignored it, the more it started influencing you in ways you couldn't explain. Hesitation in moments that required action, silence when something needed to be said, restraint that cost you opportunities. Carl Jung called this your shadow, not a flaw, but a hidden part of your nature that holds everything you were taught to suppress. And according to him, the man who refuses to face it doesn't become better. He becomes divided. In this video, you'll see why being good is not what you think, why suppression quietly weakens you, and why the part of you you've been avoiding might be the key to your freedom. The hidden enemy, why your good side is actually controlling you. You were never as good as you think. You were trained to be acceptable. That difference changes everything. From the outside, it looks like discipline, morality, self-control. You stay calm, avoid conflict, choose the right words, do what is expected. People call it maturity. They call it character. But underneath, something else is happening. You are suppressing parts of yourself you were taught to reject. Not because they are useless, but because they are dangerous when seen. Carl Jung described this as the shadow, the part of you that holds aggression, ambition, selfishness, dominance, desire for control. Everything that does not fit the image of a good person. So, you push it down. You deny it. You pretend it isn't there. And in doing that, you lose control over it. That's the hidden enemy. Because what you suppress does not disappear. It goes underground. And from there, it starts influencing you without your awareness. Watch how it shows up. You hesitate when you should act. You stay silent when you should confront. You tolerate disrespect you should have cut off. You choose peace, even when it costs you position. That's not strength. That's conditioning. The version of you that could act decisively, speak directly, and take control has been buried under the need to be liked, accepted, and seen as good. And that buried part doesn't vanish. It leaks. In frustration, in passive aggression, in moments where you lose control unexpectedly, because anything ignored long enough becomes unstable. Jung's insight was simple but brutal. If you refuse to face your darker side, it does not make you better. It makes you weaker and easier to control, because now your behavior is not chosen. It is restricted. You don't act based on what is effective. You act based on what is allowed. And that limitation shapes your entire life. People sense it. They feel where you hold back. They test where you hesitate. They push where you won't respond. Not consciously, but accurately. Because suppressed power is visible, even when unspoken. The shift begins the moment you stop seeing your darkness as something to eliminate and start seeing it as something to understand, not to unleash blindly, but to integrate. Because once you recognize that your good side was built on suppression, you start questioning it. You start seeing where you've been controlled by your own image. And once that awareness hits, the version of you that was hidden stops being your weakness. It becomes your leverage. The shadow within, what Carl Jung discovered about your dark side. There is a version of you that you've never allowed to exist. Not because it's weak, but because it's too powerful to be accepted. It carries traits you were taught to reject early. Aggression, dominance, selfish intent, the ability to take without asking. These qualities were labeled dangerous, so you learned to distance yourself from them. You built an identity around the opposite. Controlled, polite, agreeable, safe, but that identity is incomplete. Carl Jung identified this hidden layer as the shadow. Not evil, not immoral, but everything that was pushed out of your conscious self to maintain a socially acceptable image. The mistake is assuming that what you reject disappears. It doesn't. It reorganizes itself beneath your awareness and begins to influence you from there, not directly, indirectly, in ways that feel like hesitation, overthinking, unnecessary restraint. You feel something inside pushing for action, but you override it. You feel anger rise, but you suppress it. You sense an opportunity to assert yourself, but you step back instead. That internal conflict is not random. It's division. Part of you is active. The other part is buried. And the buried part does not stay silent forever. It expresses itself through distortion. You may find yourself reacting too late, then overcorrecting. You may tolerate behavior until it crosses a line, then respond with intensity that feels out of proportion. You may admire traits in others that you secretly avoid in yourself. That is not coincidence. That is your shadow trying to surface. Jung's deeper insight was this: the more you deny these traits, the more control they gain over you. Because what is unconscious cannot be directed. It acts on its own terms. That's where most men lose control without realizing it. They believe they are disciplined, but they are fragmented. They believe they are in control, but they are disconnected from a part of themselves that holds real force. That disconnection creates weakness, because now your behavior is limited to what you allow consciously, while another part of you operates outside your control. The man who understands this does not try to remove his shadow. He studies it. He observes what he avoids, what he suppresses, what he judges in others, because those patterns point directly to what has been hidden. That awareness changes your internal structure. You stop dividing yourself. You begin integrating. And when that happens, something shifts. Your actions become more direct. Your decisions carry more weight. Your presence becomes harder to challenge, not because you became aggressive, but because you became whole. If you're new here, subscribe now and comment "Face the Shadow" if you're ready to see what you've been avoiding. This oppression trap, why being nice is slowly destroying you. You weren't taught to be kind. You were taught to avoid consequences. That's why your niceness feels safe, but costs you everything. From early on, certain behaviors were rewarded. Agreeing instead of confronting. Staying quiet instead of challenging. Smiling instead of resisting. Over time, those responses became automatic. Not because they were always right, but because they were approved. That approval shaped your identity. Now you move through situations trying to maintain that image. You keep interactions smooth. You avoid friction. You adjust yourself so others stay comfortable. It looks controlled, but it's submission in disguise. Carl Jung warned that what you repress does not disappear. It accumulates. Every time you ignore a boundary, every time you silence an instinct, every time you choose approval over truth, something builds beneath the surface. Not visible, but active. That buildup creates tension. You may not notice it immediately. It shows slowly. In the way you hesitate before speaking. In the way you second-guess your own decisions. In the way you tolerate situations that clearly work against you. That is not patience. That is suppression. And suppression always comes with a cost. Because the parts of you that could act directly, set limits, and take control are being held back constantly. Over time, those parts lose strength. They become harder to access. So when a moment actually requires strength, you don't have it ready. You freeze. Or worse, you overreact. That's the second phase of the trap. You hold everything in until the pressure becomes too much. Then it releases in a way that feels excessive, misaligned, even self-destructive. That reaction confuses you. But it shouldn't. It's the result of everything you refused to express earlier. Jung's perspective makes this clear. When you deny parts of yourself repeatedly, they don't disappear. They gather intensity in the background, waiting for a moment to break through. And when they do, you don't control them. That's how nice becomes dangerous. Not to others, but to you. Because you are no longer acting with balance. You are operating in extremes. Either too passive or too reactive. Never precise. Never controlled. The shift begins when you stop using niceness as a default response. You start evaluating situations based on truth, not comfort. You allow friction when it's necessary. You speak directly when something crosses a line. That doesn't make you hostile. It makes you aligned. And once alignment replaces suppression, you stop destroying your own position just to keep others comfortable. The villain shift. Why accepting your darkness creates power. There comes a point where being good starts costing too much. Not visibly at first. Subtly. In the opportunities you pass on. The boundaries you don't enforce. The decisions you dilute just to stay acceptable. You begin to notice a pattern. You are always adjusting, but rarely advancing. That's when the shift becomes unavoidable. Because what you've been calling morality is often fear in disguise. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood. So you stay within limits that keep you safe, even when those limits keep you small. Carl Jung approached this differently. He didn't suggest becoming immoral or reckless. He pointed towards something far more uncomfortable, acknowledging the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the traits that don't fit your image, the willingness to dominate a situation when necessary, the ability to say no without explaining, the capacity to act in your own interest without guilt. These are usually labeled negative, so you distance yourself from them. But distancing doesn't remove them. It only removes your awareness of them. And what you are not aware of, you cannot direct. That is why the villain shift is powerful. It is not about becoming destructive. It is about becoming honest. You stop pretending those traits don't exist. You recognize them, study them, and bring them under control instead of leaving them buried. That changes your internal structure, because now you are not divided between what you show and what you hide. You become integrated, and integration creates strength. Watch how this affects your behavior. You no longer hesitate in moments that require direct action. You no longer soften your words to protect someone else's comfort at your expense. You no longer avoid decisions just to maintain a clean image. You move with clarity. That clarity feels different. Less approval-seeking, more self-directed. Others notice it immediately. Even if they cannot explain it, your presence feels harder to influence, harder to pressure, harder to redirect, because you are no longer operating within the limits of being liked. You are operating from awareness. Jung's insight was that wholeness requires embracing both sides of your nature, not just the acceptable traits, but the uncomfortable ones as well. Once that happens, something shifts permanently. You stop fearing how you might be perceived. You stop holding yourself back to maintain an image. And in that moment, the version of you that once felt dangerous becomes the part that gives you control. The projection game. Why people attack what they secretly are. The way people judge you is rarely about you. It's about what you reflect back to them. Most reactions you receive are not based on your actions alone. They are filtered through something deeper, something the other person is not fully aware of. Carl Jung described this as projection, a process where individuals displace parts of themselves onto others, especially the traits they refuse to recognize within their own identity. That is where confusion begins, because you think you are being evaluated, when in reality, you are being used as a mirror. Watch how this plays out. Someone calls you arrogant when you assert yourself. Another labels you cold when you stop over-explaining. Someone else becomes uncomfortable when you set a clear boundary. These reactions seem personal, but they are not. They are reflections of something unresolved in them. Confidence threatens insecurity. Detachment exposes dependency. Clarity disrupts confusion. What they criticize is often what they cannot express themselves. That is why the reaction feels intense. It's not about what you did, It's about what your behavior represents. Most people avoid confronting their own shadow. Instead, they externalize it. They assign it to someone else, attack it, reject it, and in doing so, temporarily distance themselves from it. That is the game, and most men fall into it without awareness. They take reactions personally. They adjust themselves to avoid criticism. They reduce their behavior to stay within acceptable limits. And in doing that, they shrink. Not because they were wrong, but because they misunderstood the source of the reaction. The man who understands projection responds differently. He does not absorb every opinion. He evaluates the source. He observes patterns in how people react to him instead of immediately correcting himself. That awareness changes everything, because now, external reactions lose their authority. You are no longer reacting to every label placed on you. You are interpreting where it comes from. That creates distance, and distance creates clarity. You begin to see that not every criticism requires adjustment. Not every negative reaction reflects truth. Some of it reflects internal conflict from the other side. Once that becomes clear, you stop shaping yourself based on unstable feedback. You hold your position instead of constantly modifying it. And that is where power returns. Because when you are no longer controlled by how others project their insecurities, their reactions lose the ability to define you. Hit like, comment aware if you finally see truth. The controlled darkness, how to use your shadow without losing yourself. Power without direction turns destructive. That's why most people fear their darker side. Not because it is useless, but because it feels uncontrollable. Once you recognize that part of yourself, the part capable of aggression, dominance, selfish decisions, it can feel unstable, like something that, if unleashed, could damage everything you've built. So the instinct is to push it back down again. But that returns you to the same problem. Unconscious force is always more dangerous than conscious force. Carl Jung made a clear distinction here. The goal is not expression without limits. The goal is integration with control. That changes the entire approach. Because now, you are not trying to remove that energy. You are learning how to direct it. Think about what that side of you actually holds. Decisiveness, intensity, the ability to act without hesitation, the willingness to prioritize your own position when necessary. These are not flaws. They become problems only when they operate without awareness. When they take over impulsively, they create damage. But when they are guided, they create advantage. That is where most men fail. They swing between two extremes. Either they suppress everything and become passive, or they release everything and become reckless. Both positions lack control. The man who operates differently builds structure around his darker impulses. He does not deny them. He studies when they appear, what triggers them, and how they influence his decisions. He learns to recognize the exact moment that energy rises, and instead of reacting blindly, he redirects it with intention. That is control, because now the energy is still there, but it is no longer in charge. It becomes a tool. In situations that require firmness, it provides strength. In moments that demand action, it removes hesitation. In environments where others are passive, it creates movement, but it never overrides judgment. That balance is what creates power without self-destruction. Jung's insight was that wholeness does not come from eliminating darkness. It comes from bringing it into awareness and placing it under conscious direction. Once that happens, something changes permanently. You are no longer divided between what you show and what you hide. You operate with full access to your range, but with control over how it is expressed. That makes you unpredictable, but not unstable, capable, but not reckless. And that distinction is what separates controlled power from chaos. Because when your darker side is no longer something that controls you, it becomes something you control. The freedom paradox. Freedom doesn't feel good at first. It feels like loss of approval, loss of validation, loss of the version of you that people were comfortable with. That's why most men never reach it. They confuse freedom with comfort, when in reality, the two move in opposite directions. As long as you need to be seen a certain way, your actions are not fully yours. They are shaped, filtered, adjusted to maintain an image. You choose words carefully, hold back decisions, avoid friction, not because it's right, but because it keeps you accepted. That is not freedom. That is dependency on perception. Carl Jung's work points directly at this conflict. The self you present to the world, the persona, is built to be accepted. But the more tightly you hold onto that image, the more disconnected you become from your full range. And that disconnection creates a quiet prison. Because now every decision passes through one question. How will this be seen? That question limits everything. It stops you from acting directly. It prevents you from expressing what needs to be expressed. It keeps you inside boundaries that protect your image but weaken your position. Breaking that structure comes with a cost. You will be misunderstood. Some will label you differently. Some will pull back. Some will interpret your shift as arrogance, coldness, or distance. That is where the paradox begins. Because what looks like becoming the villain to others is actually you removing the need to perform for them. You stop over-explaining. You stop softening your decisions. You stop adjusting your behavior just to remain acceptable. And in doing that, you take something back. Control over your own direction. That shift feels uncomfortable at first because you are stepping outside of patterns that were reinforced for years. You are no longer playing the role that kept things smooth. You are choosing alignment over approval. And alignment always creates friction. But that friction is necessary, because without it, you remain shaped by external expectations. Once you move through that phase, something changes. You no longer hesitate based on how something might be interpreted. You act based on what is true, what is necessary, what moves you forward. That clarity creates stability, not the kind that comes from being accepted, but the kind that comes from being self-directed. That is freedom, not clean, not comfortable, but real, because the moment you stop trying to protect your image, you stop giving others the power to control it. You've seen what most people spend their entire lives avoiding, not because it's complicated, but because it's uncomfortable to face. The part of you you were taught to reject was never your weakness. It was the piece you never learned how to control. And once you understand that, everything starts to shift. You stop pretending. You stop holding back in the wrong moments. You stop living through an image that was built for approval. That's where real change begins. Not outside, inside. If this made you see yourself differently, don't just watch and move on. Like the video so this reaches others who are still stuck in the same patterns. Comment seen if something here actually clicked for you. Subscribe if you're ready to understand yourself at a deeper level instead of staying blind to it. And share this with someone who still thinks ignoring their shadow makes them stronger. Face it, understand it, control it. That's where your real power is.